I'm Matt Salazar. I'm the producer here at Muse Studios. Warren did not want to introduce anyone. He wanted to switch it up. So I'm going to do this. Over here, this is Lucas Flood. He runs our events.
Curtsy.
Big reason we're here. Studio manager, Zulma Tercero. And I'm told I'm supposed to take you around the studio today. So that's what we're going to do. All right.
So we're at Muse Studios. Obviously, this is rather a special place. I did have a sneak peek. I have looked around already. Tell us a little bit about your journey, how you got here, because you had another place before this.
Yeah, we never intended to have a commercial facility. We had a much smaller production space that we used, and LA kind of became a niche market where musicians would have their own place, the drummers would have their own place. So as we were putting together productions, you sort of went to everyone else's location, you get it done, you had a production room, you're good to go. And that's what we originally had. It wasn't called Muse Studios. It was just, we had like in-flight music. Everyone would say, I'm at in-flight music group making whatever we're doing, right? And there was a larger creative space downtown. We thought we'd get ahead of the curve with Warner Brothers moving down there and everything. We're like, if we set up our space, then it'll be great for everything else going on. Well, little did we think about the future where something like that happens and the real estate value goes through the roof and the whole building was sold. And when our lease came up for renewal, suddenly the lawyers were kicking everyone out of the building and it wasn't going to happen. So we're like, what do we do? And I said, I think it's time, if we're going to do something down here, it would be a whole lot more fun if we had a large space, room to work, bring the musicians here, bring everyone together. At that time, our songwriting events had kind of happened. We were getting a lot of songwriters coming by, wanting to do bigger things. And it just felt like a natural thing. We found this place in the Fashion District. It's just a row of warehouses. This was a shipping warehouse. And we had our first session in May. We signed our lease in March. Our first session was in May. So we had to be really quick. And as you'll see, it's very non-traditional, the way we built it out.
So was this a completely empty space?
This room was here. It wasn't quite as nice, right? We had to remodel the bathrooms and things. But in here, you'd walk through here, it was a big open warehouse, just concrete, cinder block square. This is typically the lounge, but when we have shoot dates, we'll turn it in. I'll turn on, well, you guys can see. They'll use it as a green room, so it's kind of a multi-purpose room. Normally when it's set up, it's just the lounge traditionally. So it just really, because we do more and more filming, it gets a multitude of uses. We've got like little custom covers because so many people will go in there and have to change or wardrobe or whatever else. So we've sort of found it that it's best to leave it bare. And then depending on the client, we'll just fill in whether it needs a couch or it needs a wardrobe rack, whatever may need to happen.
So Matt, this is quite cool. First of all, you got a pair of ATCs, so God bless you. God bless your bank account.
English. Yeah, there you go.
Those are not cheap speakers. They're amazing, but phenomenal speakers. Did you come up using them?
No, actually, when I was younger, I hated ATCs, which makes sense, right? We were talking about younger children, your teenage years, we were all making stupid choices, right? Stupidly, I didn't like them because they're very revealing. The mid-range is crazy. We had in our last room, we had a pair of Dyna Audio MX3Es. They're actually in our lounge right now, which are gorgeous speakers. They worked really well in that room. That room was designed as a traditional control room, like a mix room. The dimension, everything was right for that. They sounded great. We brought them to this open space and they didn't like it. Like they sounded great. No, they weren't bad, but after we had experienced them in the last place, they just weren't inspiring to want to mix on anymore. So I just found myself, I was always on my NS10s, which that was what I used forever. It was like the one consistent thing. You can take them to any room and they work, right? As long as low levels, they just tend to work. So I was experimenting. I was like, you know what? The ATCs this sounds like it would work in the space. Lo and behold, we put them in the space and you could see the NS10s are gone. So these are the only monitors I use for anything now. Everything else is gone. They're so easy to work on. They're great. You can't say anything about them that's, so.
Beautiful. Yeah. So tell us about the console that's not a console that is actually a console.
Yeah. So I like working on consoles, whether it's recording or mixing. I want to grab faders. I want things to be right in front of me. Even when we're on the in-ears and we would go to the outboard racks or whatnot when we had them installed, it just feels more natural for things to be right in front of you and even quicker than if you're just in Pro Tools. So I really fell in love. Jeff, who has a company called Cappy Audio, he had come out with kits. Maybe this is 12 years ago or something. I had some of the first ones. They didn't even have a colored faceplate. They were just, raw metal. And I really kind of fell in love with what the sound of that was. And it was an API sound. We talk about like the 421s and me wanting to go to a different thing with the toms. It was the same thing where everyone seems to be making records with Neves. And I thought that this sound was interesting. It was different. And he came out with this old sort of like a Wally Heider modded API design. And I heard him and I just replaced everything with those. They just sound so incredible. I like tracking a band with all the same preamp to me. And I don't know, like you might solo a Neve against this one or a Trident against it, and it might sound better on the kick. But for me, it seems to come together easier. And that was the way, again, coming from studios and working in studios, we tracked everything in the console. We weren't thinking about what preamp to use. So it's really like, look, I like this preamp. It works. I can bring a section of musicians in and it comes together. So if I use it, I don't have to think about it anymore. I set the gain level and I move on. And that's pretty much, the records I like, that's how they were made. No one was thinking about what's on the kick, what's on the snare. You're plotting it out, So I've got those sort of like an API flavor, but modded. And we built the ones in the end. We built those.
Oh, these ones?
Yeah, so that's his, I think VB28 is what he calls those. So you can build them. And it's unique because there's two gain stages. There's the preamp in there, but also the same active fader circuit. So it's just like if you were on a console instead of, what I never liked about the traditional sort of API design 500 preamps is that they only kind of took the preamp stage out and it didn't seem to have the same weight. So Jeff, I think, just kind of cracked the code and put the fader circuit in there and it seems to work a whole lot better.
So is it sort of channels 1 through 30 with the with these FD 312s?
It actually one starts at the very end.
Oh, so it does start one there. Okay.
Yeah, we kind of went through different iterations. With the SSL, we had a huge patch bay, right? Just massive, a remote bay. And I wanted to say, if we're just going to do it like this, everything is wired to the mic lines directly, and there's no more patch bay anymore. So we've organized Pro Tools to pick it up. We know the gear is permanently wired where it needs to be. For the sessions that we've just done enough sessions to know, like, this is what comes in. We know how many mics we're going to use on drums. Here's our close mic bucket, our room mics. That's our kind of, guitar stuff and all our DI stuff at the end. It just all sort of magically works for what we do. And it's all there wired. There's no patch bay.
That's what I was looking around. I was trying to ascertain. I was thinking, there's no patch bay. So,
yeah.
So with this first bucket of say 8 here,
yeah,
you're not using EQ on this. So
no, those are actually all connected to any DIs we have. So if we put DIs on the floor or back here, so when I'm recording guitars, I'll always take a DI for the clean feed for the editing or reamp. And then if there's a load box, or if it's microphones, it's out there.
Great.
So the next bucket over is sort of like live instruments. So we have our acoustic guitar channels, our piano channels, our electric guitar channels, and they have their own thing going on.
Great. You ended up with this, the SSL here. So is this just so you could keep the fader feel an option?
That was a big part of it, yeah. And Avid makes their version of it, but there's like an iPad screen, and I just really wanted to. It was it's kind of a big decision to go away from the SSL. I'm so familiar with it; it was like a piece of me, and I wanted the feel to be the same. So these are relatively new, and I kind of said this. It makes sense the way they laid them out, and for what I wanted to use them for. They felt right. There's things you can't do, but the stuff you can't do, I wouldn't do. I just when I had the SSL, we had Ultimation on it, and really all I needed to be able to do was grab a fader and work it and let it go. All the other stuff, there's guys that are geniuses with how they, what I mean? That's just not me. I just want to, I'll EQ the sound, I'll balance it, and then, we'll move on. I'll try to, if I sit too long on it, I lose focus of the song completely. I need to have it mixed and done, or I'm useless. Put someone else in the chair.
So how are these integrated with your DAW, with Pro Tools? So
they're daisy chained with like a USB-C cable that then goes into, there's a Mac Pro down there, and they're Huey. From what I understand, technically, SSL's found a way around the limitation of Huey as far as like fader steps, and using them, it doesn't feel like a traditional Huey interface at all, which was kind of difficult. Whenever I tried one, I couldn't get around. It was just there was a lag. It just didn't feel right. But this feels right. So it's just Huey connected in, and there's, I think we've maxed out the number of faders you can use. And, you could even, scroll through a session and it just all sort of works good. When we're mixing, we have a template. So we just assign, we set you've got a little knob here that you can roll through, the session. And we sort of just like set it to the template and everything's where it should be all the time.
Is it relevant at all, do you think, to talk about just, why we moved away from the SSL in terms of the sessions being, but like it was really, we kind of forced your hand on the business side. If you had to sit here and make records, like you had beautiful racks of gear and kind of everything, but it just turned into a situation where sessions would be booked and you'd be on a mix and like we would have to push so much, so many deadlines, because it's like, you can't just fire a console on and off as you please. It's
that was a huge, ironically, as the studio got busier with film work, I was getting kicked out of the room. And it's a pain in the ass when you have an analog console. For me, it was always, and you probably remember the smell of tape.
Sure.
When you hit record, there was a smell. And I feel like whatever musicians were in the room, you just knew we weren't rehearsing anymore. It's serious. And it's the same way when I put the mix up on the console, we are 100% devoted, for me, mind space into doing this. And just when the business started to change and we started doing more film stuff, the room wasn't just mine anymore when I needed it. And then when you lose the space or you come back in, it's analog, right? So things will adjust, right? The temperature change will adjust the way it kind of is, right? And it wasn't functional anymore to work because you kind of come out of the same reason that the analog was so great, because it really focused you into that space, became my downfall because I couldn't remain in the space, right, to be focused. So it was a big transition with where the company was like, look, we have to, either you have to find another production, we'll move into another space. And it's like, well, that's just not cost effective at all. This is just our kind of tracking shooting location. So I had to kind of force my way to figure out what I liked in the box and what I didn't. Why didn't I like the things I didn't like? And, we kind of came to a place that we like.
Those were hard conversations, I feel like, because we were all, even Zulma and myself, not being directly in the audio world, it was like the setup here and like that console specifically, being used or custom built for Michael Jackson, used by Dre, Eminem, all that stuff. Like we had like a personal attachment. I feel like it was like a part of everything that we had started. So then to like make the decision of like, okay, we could work more efficiently and pretty much make more money, have more business. If we did this, it was, you want to have your toys, but then at the end of the day, we got to keep the lights on.
When you're making a record, there's an efficiency about the console. When everything, in the way this room was, everything was basically patched up. There might as well not have been a patch bay because everything was made, we had the gear, the outboard gear, it was calibrated, you just work. And when everything's just laid out in front of you, you just grab things and it's like this, the kick and the snare were always on the same fader every time. You just grab it and go. Part of why we kind of reproduce that here. But it's just, it was immediate. It was like an extension of your body. And when, we'd have people come in and say, well, man, it takes so much longer on a console. And I'm like, man, we'll do a mix in a couple hours. It's really quite quick, I don't have to set up anything. I don't have to drag plugins around. It's just like, if I want to, I just hit what I want. And you have to make some hard decisions, right? You're not going to say, well, I've got the LA3S on guitar. I know that sound. I'm really familiar with it. I'm not going to ask to patch around. I just want to know, is it better or is it not? Did I improve the sound or did I not improve it? Because in the way I work, nothing's going to be better on a guitar than the LA3A, or nothing's, whatever I had put on there, right? So it really forced you to just make very quick decisions about just, do I like it or not like it? Instead of saying, well, how do I want to, set this plugin up or anything, which I'll just get distracted and become a little nerd boy and sit there for 3 hours tweaking a plugin, and because it's fun. It is fun. It's very fun, but not when you need to deliver something or remain in the objective mood of the, like I don't want to know this song well enough that it can't objectively say it's a good mix.
So is this effectively set up how you use it? Meaning, are these compressors already patched in on this bay
Exactly.
Here? Okay.
Yeah, so they're all, we have, and I could tell you, we have our piano on those last two channels. They go down to these Pultec EQs that Colin built. Then they go to those APIs and then into the Neve. So when I get a piano sound, we put up the mic and it's like instant piano sound, which really is like, so much of that is how we work. So if we have a band in here, because it is sort of like almost like a bedroom vibe where you're just like, I want to think up this idea. I think that's another thing that's come from the home studios where I want a piano, and then you pull up your piano library and you have an instant piano. That wasn't how it used to be in a studio. You're like, oh, I want to do a piano. All right, great. So everyone grab a coffee and we'll set up the piano and we'll get it going. Here, if someone wants a piano, we put the piano, plug it in, and you have a piano. And it's as if it was almost like a plugin, right? So that's how everything's set to work. It's like we're ready. If someone wants something, it's up. Or if I come up with some sort of creative idea, we've got it.
So this is your monitoring control then?
Right.
That's one heck of a big Neve style.
Yeah.
How did you end up choosing this as your master control?
So I knew the brand from the compressors that I thought were quite good. And we saw the original Neve 2264s out there, and they came out with like a 500 series, and I really liked it. I ended up using it on the console for my toms. I thought they sounded really great. In fact, better than the Neves for that particular purpose.
Great.
And so I knew of them, and we were looking for something that would not only sound really great, and I wasn't concerned so much about the digital converters and everything. I already had that. I just needed to be able to have something that had relays on it, so and you can hear the click, right?
Nice.
Had a nice talkback. I wanted a talkback that was integrated into the control like a console. I didn't want to have to bolt on something. This one actually is wireless, so you can take it with you. So there's slight latency on the talkback because it's wireless. But we're wired up right now. It's charging. Yeah. But it's, you can take it with you around the room. It has a lot of connectivity. So when we're recording or we're filming something, I can get a feed out to whatever is the film people's recorder, plus whatever I'm doing. I can slate it. So I can choose between talking back to the Q system or in the mix, which, if you're familiar with the SSL, you can choose who you want to speak to. Do you want to speak to the MD? Do you want to speak to the, Q1? All those features were really useful because sometimes you don't want to talk to everyone, or maybe the client needs me to slate something on the film side. I can just do that without disrupting the musicians by doing it. So it had all these features that I was trying to figure out workarounds with other brands, and there's so many really good sounding units out there. It's at some point we're at like a pretty high level. We're at this day of age or whatever.
Sure.
But it had everything I needed, and we got it. It sounds really, really great. I'd worked between the time that we didn't have the SSL on during the whole pandemic thing. I got really familiar with just the converters out to the speakers and using like a master fader. God forbid I ever hit option and it went all the way up.
Yeah.
But I got really familiar with the sound of the converters and what they really sounded like. And I don't notice anything. I don't know I'm not doing that when I'm using it. So that was good enough for me to. I'm sure some tech guy could tell you the specifics of why I'm wrong, but for me, it sounds great. It works really great. It provides all the connectivity that we need. So if I just always know this is my chain for these things, this is what I'm very familiar with. And when I'm working with the musicians, they don't notice the gears here, other than being like, oh wow, it's cool. There's a lot of lights. They don't need to worry about the equipment, and I don't have to have any downtime, and we can just work, and it's all creative and fun. So there's not a lot of, we're not very serious here. We're not like, there's none of that. It's just, we want to keep that vibe very creative, playful. And I felt like not having a patch bay, not having that like period of like, okay, let's take a break. Let's just work and do it. It just felt sort of like in an odd way how it'd work on the SSL, where everything was in front of you and you could just get to work and do it.
I mean, a wonderful selection of EQs here. Got the TK stuff, which is beautiful. A lot of people are huge fans. Of course, some original 550As. Tone Lux.
Yeah, Paul Wolf.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Paul's amazing.
Yeah.
Probably one of the greats. Stereo Poltec here. And then tell us a little bit about these, because you were telling me about this off camera, the AML.
So I really loved the original Neve 2264s on the room mics.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to lose that flavor, but I didn't want to have an outboard rack. I wanted everything to be in front of me. So there had to be some sort of compromise involved, right? Because those are just so big. So Colin at AML, he can build you this basically. I think he was originally a Neve employee and formed his own things. You can get parts from him. He's got a really cool store in the UK. And he built me 6 of them, 2 for the piano and 4 for the room mic. So there's the stereo 49s on one pair, and then the RD8 ribbon mic that feeds the other pair. And we've done now 2 recordings with them, and I don't miss the Neves at all. So different than the Heritage, where I don't think that, that this actually I feel is maybe a little bit more closely to what the 32264 does. I like the Heritage because it's slightly different.
Right.
So it looks like one, but it does something slightly different, which I actually like.
Right.
For certain applications better than the Neve. Yeah.
It's incredible.
I was just gonna say, I feel like if we're gonna talk about the desk, we got to talk about
The desk, the actual.
it was like a big deal. Yeah, when the console left, I was like, Matt, what are you gonna put in its place? It's obviously not like a small area, and I'm like, if the gear's going, like, what are we gonna do?
Did you custom make it?
We did. What you could see, this is, kind of the prototypeness of it, trying to use the wood petty and fix the mistakes. But Colin in college had a mechanical engineering background, so he could CAD everything up.
Yeah.
So I kind of forced him. I said, look, Colin, we're going to do this. He's like, I don't know anything about building carpentry. I said, look, we built this whole studio ourselves, like we just figured, we could do it if we really, if we put our minds to it, if we read enough and we got like in trial and error, we can do it.
Got to see the man behind the desk right here.
Here's Colin.
Hey.
So Colin literally built the whole thing. So we sat down for, I don't know, we did multitudes of designs, but what I wanted was, one thing the SSL did do that I didn't like is it would change the frequency response of the speakers quite a bit. And I thought, there's an opportunity for us to fix that. So we sort of looked at mastering consoles and what angles they would have.
Right.
Also the kind of ergonomics of, where you could still grab everything very easily. And then also like just even moving around the console where you were comfortable and you wouldn't hit your knees on it. So we just we'd get, oh man, this is the great, really work well for sound. And then we'd find it doesn't work well for you having to reach to grab something. Right. I got sort of, tired the older if you wanted to reach, up to the compressors, you had to stand up, So I wanted something where we could just sit here or you could stand and just feel comfortable at the desk. So we just kept going through designs. It took about a month and he would just, he probably wants to kill me even now because I say, and rebuild it. I looked at it as I look at maybe like a client when the client asks you to change one thing, but it's actually 20 million things because he had to redesign every piece of wood as a scrap piece and then build, put them together. So he, again, probably
it was crazy to just watch you guys do this. Cause like, honestly, and like, no offense, I just thought this was going to be rickety. I was like, how are you guys going to build some nice stuff for all this gear? And then I see him back there one day and you were on like 18 hours a day for like literally 2 or 3 weeks straight.
Yeah.
And I go back there and I'm like, dude, I was like, this is pretty nice. And then they painted it and everything's polished now.
Yeah, Zulma just went out there with spray paint. That's just spray paint. She just spray, it's like, we're going to get this done. It needs to be in the room, like we need to get business back open.
That was crazy. Yeah.
So you basically had to choose all of the gear in advance and know what you were going to use, Precisely. Or else you wouldn't be able to decide.
Colin made a CAD makeup, right, of every piece of equipment he did to make sure that everything would ventilate correctly and connect correctly. So we sort of.
Well, you got some spare room. You can stick another distressor in there. You got some room down here if you want to get a little carried away.
There you go. There's a Fairchild PCB in the back. I told Colin that's up next.
Yeah, that's where the Fairchild's going in there. Yeah. That's
3 million tubes later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, great work.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah. Bravo, Colin. Yeah. Gotta get his time in the light.
Well, I mean, you're a guitar player, so let's talk some guitars.
Sure.
Did you collect these as a guitar player or, well, I don't know. It's both really, I suppose, guitar player / producer?
Yeah, I think I started more, because when I, as you do when you come to LA, you come with nothing. I had a 69 Beetle, that's what I had, and a guitar, I brought with me.
What was the guitar?
It was, it's Nashville tuned in the back now, but it's just a Stratocaster, an American Stratocaster. Still a great guitar, but we use it for like extra, Nashville tuning. Great, great
love
use
it.
for a Strat. Yeah.
Yep, love it.
Over time you'd get, especially when you're seeing other producers that are kind of masters of their craft, like you get to see a lot of stuff and hear things, and you're like, wow, I understand where that tone's coming from. You start to craft your ear a little bit. And then you over time want to get something. I'm looking for this sort of tone, and you gravitate towards it, and you want to try to find out what it is. So, it's a collection of many, many, many years. It's not like, you could just say, oh, let's just go get one of these today or whatever. Some of them, you're looking for, and it takes 4 years later, something pops up or someone tells you, hey, yeah, I know this guy, I know you're looking for one. So, over time you get the stuff, and you know how it is. You cycle through things that you think you're going to like, and it turns out you don't. And then you get, so stuff you're holding on to is, how to use it,
Well, this also looks pretty custom. Like, it's not like you can guess that these things are going to fit. You're going to have to.
We built this too. So when we built the console, we built these as well.
There's a common theme throughout the studio.
We
Matt just likes building shit, apparently.
Yeah, I like it to fit into a space. I grew up, my my mother and my grandfather originally started a furniture store. My mother took over the store. I grew up inside of a furniture store.
Ah, nice.
I love interior design. We're talking about like, Architectural Digest and stuff. I'm like, that's what, it's
The whole front room
Yeah.
like is designed by Matt, which is like there's a little chic taste there.
yeah, so when I see something or the way I want to work, I feel like that I want to build that into, the flow of the
Right.
space. So, we sort of just, same time we figured this out, and this was like we knocked this out in a day. It wasn't really that hard to build compared to the console. That was quite difficult, but we were able to put together. And there's a gentleman who's a mastering engineer in Sweden, and I was really starting to play more and more with impulse responses. Maybe over the past 5 years, I used to have all these cabs, and there's just a lot of work to get. And the first time I started playing with them, they were pretty good. It accurately kind of got the cab, but there's some other components missing. I didn't get, even when someone would say, oh, it's a reactive load, it wasn't quite doing what I still heard the reaction between the magnet component of the speaker and the amp. So as I was kind of thinking up more and more, I found there's a master engineer in Sweden who was building kind of really, or looking at the reactance and impedance in a kind of way I was looking at it. And so he built these, and actually they were, I think, custom thought they were bombs. They're point to point, so there's no PC board.
Right.
So kind of like maybe you can like look in here and see.
Oh wow.
So basically, we knew the sound. You'd think these are knobs, but these are, this is like 1800s technology to get this to work. But I basically now have adjustable reactance on the top presence and at the resonant frequency, and then a capacitor bank, which is right there, controls the frequency in which the bottom kind of resonance will be at. So depending on the type of cab, and it's like game changer compared to anything else I've used as far as a load box goes. And now to me actually feels like a speaker cab.
So are you using impulse responses with that?
Exactly. So we'll take the amps.
Yep.
There's 3 sort of sections to this wall.
Yep.
This is sort of like an L here where it goes down here and over here, and then like a reverse of that, and then a center one. Each one of these amps has a controller to it, one of these KHE boxes where I could just flip through the amp.
Mm-hmm.
So I can have it up in Pro Tools, and all of this again is connected to the console. Mm-hmm. So all I do is literally switch through, and I'm instantly hearing each different amp. Nice. So it simultaneously will route the input signal and the speaker output to its respective load box, and then send it through the console into Pro Tools.
And in Pro Tools, you just open up an impulse response. And
right, then I sort of have my templates of what I would use for each thing, and they're there, and
nice.
It works.
So what a huge selection of amps.
Yeah.
I mean, left to right, you've got a couple of divided by 13s.
Yeah, surprisingly, most guitarists that come in don't know the divided by 13s, really? But I feel like, was it like in the 2000s, everyone, that was what, these were the amps they were on like every record ever, during that time period.
Yeah, Brian Ray's a friend of mine from Paul McCartney's band. He uses them, and
they're incredible.
They're on stage.
This one I've loaned to different friends that have toured around the world with it, with big pop acts and stuff. Just, they do what they're supposed to do. They last. None of them have ever had any problems. I've had these for many, many years. And they're just kind of workhorses, and the sound is incredible from them.
I've always wanted one, to be honest. I borrowed one for about a year. And
it was a good year.
It was a good year.
Yeah.
Wonderland Overdrive.
Sort of like a Dumble thing. A play on the John Mayer Dumble amp, so Wonderland, John Mayer,
Yeah.
Another just great guy, builds the amps himself, and the clean sound of that is almost deep like a piano. It's like where you have your Fender, and it's like, if you're running like the Fender on the edge of the breakup, and it's right here, and it'll do that thing that we all know and love. Yeah. This is like the opposite, where it's just like, it's like you could see through the sound, very deep.
So you're mainly using that for clean tones?
Exactly. Clean, big, you plug a Strat into that, and it's the Dumble thing. And it's just like, suddenly your Strat is 10,000 feet tall on the, bridge pickup. And
then, of course, say Fender Bassman?
Yeah, the old Bassman. So I think that's a 63. That's a great amp for guitar and bass, really. But you can drive it. It's almost will drive like a Marshall, but a gooey, ooey Marshall. You can get harmonics to kind of come off of it. I experimented with 5881 tubes versus 6L6. And it's like if you put the 581s, you even get more harmonics. They'll get a little smaller, boxier, but you can get like even more harmonics with it. So depending on what I'm doing, we put if an amp doesn't have a bias circuit in it, we just install one. We just take it to the tech shop, and that way we're able to mess with tubes. And I just will bias them by ear and double check that I'm in the range. I'm not going to blow anything up, but we'll get everything. All these amps basically have the ability to dial into the zone and be where they should be. Yeah.
Bad Cat.
Yeah. That actually, talking about the master plant, when we first got them, I caught the thing on fire, and it was the Bad Cat has a phase switch on the back. Some older amps do. I don't know why they thought to include it. Not a big deal when you have a speaker cab, because you'll just literally affect the phase. Instead of push out, it'll pull in, right? But with this, the way that pretty much I think any load box would work is that you end up, when you flip it, you put the signal into ground. And so I just blew it up the first, luckily it was just the component that provides the grounding, and he sent us some new ones. So we soldered in. Yeah, it wasn't a big deal, but resistors make a lot of smoke. So.
And Bad Cat, that's guy from Randall and Matchless, isn't it?
Exactly. So that's like one of the earlier iterations.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this stuff, you just get used, you find it and you hear it and you like it. You're like, oh, I didn't think I'd like it, and you keep it. And that's sort of one of those things. I didn't think I'd like that amp. But it sounds really, really great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And then there's a nice selection of Marshalls, to say the least. What are we looking at? 6 Marshalls.
Yeah, this is a 67 Plexi.
Beautiful.
It does exactly what you'd think it does, Actually, really, everyone, thinks it's the Fenders that have the clean sounds. I like to crank the Fenders all the way up, and the Marshalls have a really great clean sound in them,
Yeah, definitely.
Especially the older Plexis. They're really not as much gain as people would think. 72 50 watt. So this one does have quite a bit of fire.
Yeah,
right.
Lovely.
And then 64 JTM 50, which also just has a, I always like to I'll plug that in and
that's an original 64.
64, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that it's got Mahler tubes in it. They've never been touched in the however many lots of years I've had the amp. And I find with NOS tubes, they're getting pricier and pricier, but I've never, I take that back. I had one go bad on me in a 67 one time, but otherwise they just last. And we've got bias meters in the back and we check them.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, I get them pricier, but you just don't have to change your tubes.
Right.
Maybe my son will after I'm dead, but we check them to make, but everything runs pretty great. And you have the NOS tubes. Some of the, I've really come into like these RFT tubes. So I think they were made in Eastern Germany on some of the older equipment, but they're a little bit they're more robust, and you put them in a Highwall. We actually blowing load boxes inside of a Highwall because they're really high up. There's a little more mid-range kind of growl to them. So I like it. I want the little bit of growl. So the RFTs, they're really great tubes.
I mean, I didn't even know you could find a new old stock of Mallards.
You'd be surprised. They're unmarked, so they'll be just like clear gas, military spares or whatever. So if you look hard enough, you can get them.
And how much are they going for?
It's a sliding scale. It's one of those things. It's like, what's the price of gas right now?
Yeah.
It's all, it depends. How badly do you want them,
Yeah.
So typically we'll wait, or I'll try to get where, okay, I want to outfit a certain amount of amps or something like that. And some of the amps came with the NOS tubes in them. They were just, and they tested good. And
wow,
I'm just waiting for them to blow, and they don't. Hey,
what year is that JMP?
This is a 79. So technically, this would be a JCM 800 inside. But,
but what's the difference? Because I have, what's mine? Is that a Mark II? I think mine's either a 78 or 79. I have Vivian Campbell's old amp.
So yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's an outstanding amp. So through the years, basically, so the last year that Marshall was on a hand wired would have been the 72. Yeah. Then once in 73 happened, they went to PC boards. They started like gradually trying to get more gain.
Yeah.
Until they came up, I could be wrong here. It's like 76, 77, where they started kind of cascading the circuit, right? To get even more gain. And then from that time on, it was sort of like an 800 until Marshall had his distribution agreement. He got out of it and then came out with and just rebranded the amp JCM 800. But this would have been component for component, kind of like that first year JCM 800 that everyone wants. It's the same amp.
But it's interesting because growing up, I didn't like JCM 800s.
Yeah, I mean, because you got to crank them. And you got to be willing to. I think it's also the speakers that a lot of people paired them with because
Sure.
that time they came out, right? They had like the 60s and then the 75s. Marshall still puts them in. And then when the vintage 30s came out, I feel like that was like really where everyone's like, wow, okay, I get it. You put the JCM 800 with vintage 30s, which is a relatively new speaker compared to like a lot of the other classic models, right? So I think like that was one of those things where you paired the JCM 100 with vintage 30s and suddenly you're like, oh wow, that's a kind of metal-y type sound.
Yeah, because when I was a kid, it was like, wow, I've got a 300-watt cab. I just thought that was so cool because it was 300 watts. And now those just don't sound good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not, you want them to break up and they just will never break. Your ears will break up.
Yeah.
Yeah, your ears will die. This is actually the same amp as the Silver Jubilee.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So what he did is, so the model number is the same. This is just not with the silver faceplate.
I love that amp.
Yeah.
My friend, but I thought there was a 50 watt and a 100 watt. So why is that?
This has the switchable.
Oh, it's got the higher switchable.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But just So
I understand.
Yeah, it's component for component. It's the Jubilee. It's just no one knows it without the silver. Yeah.
Right.
I think this one was 89. I think 89 is the year for this.
Yeah. Those are fantastic.
Amps. Crazy good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like instant lead tone.
Yeah.
Like plug in. It's that.
Yeah. Really great amp. And then the JVM.
Kind of a modern take that's like on like every Marshall kind of ever, but not. Like it's kind of maybe a little bit homogenized, but there's a certain tone. It's a little bit darker than the other one. So if it's something like a post-grunge sound or something where it's thick, you say one man's dark is another man's thick, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit pulled back. So if you don't want it, if you want it to be a little more like, contemporary, AC, whatever, like you can use that and get away with a heavier tone without it being like the raw Marshall, growl. It's a little bit more refined.
Yeah, growing up in England, we always thought of Marshalls as being mid-rangey and aggressive, and the American rock sound being like more curved and all the lows and
get the boogie.
Yeah.
So this is a little more polite.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if I've tried one of those. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, it's great because every channel on this sounds really great.
Right.
Which normally you think, oh, it's a multi-channel. How good is it going to sound? But it's got unique EQ on every channel. It looks more complex than it is. If you just think about each channel as like
there's a lot of knobs on it, let's be honest.
Yeah, but if you just really look at it, and then each channel has, I think, 3 different switchable modes, which change the preamp that's being, like the preamp circuit being used. So it's actually like, there's like 16 amps in there. But it's pretty good sounding. Yeah, very usable if you need to kind of stick to one thing and get through it.
Let's quickly go to the last Marshall down here. So the 7th Marshall.
Yeah, that was, there's a amp modder in LA named Mark Cameron. And when I was a younger guy, I used to go to his shop and bring different amps by. And we just sit there and listen to the circuit and modify it. That's one of those amps. Unfortunately, the other ones got stolen. But that's one I still have left from him. Yeah. And he's one of those guys that's like, no one knows where he's at, and he probably owes like 12 people different amps, and they probably all are mad at him. But I just used to go by there and hang out until 4 a.m, and he'd modify amps and explain circuits to me and why this does that and why this does that, and it was a great time. And I still have that amp, and it's kind of like, it's originally a 76. Yeah. Someone ripped out the PCB board and then point-to-point wired in a plexi circuit, and then he took that and turned it into a whole nother thing. So it's an interesting kind of way it got to be how it is.
Oh,
but
fantastic.
It doesn't sound like you'd think it would. It's kind of a modern fire breather type of sound.
Diesel I recognize obviously from
everyone knows that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of metal.
A lot of metal. Actually more, I think everyone associates it as a heavier amp than it actually is, because it's got a very strong mid-range. It's kind of powers in its mid-range. If you think about like, the Boogie or whatever, where it might be kind of more body on the bottom and some, I like using it on leads because I can sit it right over like a wall of the Soldano, where it's, the Soldano's like chaos from top to bottom wall of sound. And then you have the VH4 that sits right there and could just be focused.
Tell me about the Mojave. I don't know this amp at all.
So there was a gentleman who was restoring vintage plexis, right? It was the place was called Plexi Palace. So nice. he was literally taking these plexis, restoring them. He's actually he connected me with the person who had the JTM 45 because he had restored it and said, hey, this guy's whatever, and he was able to get me this amp. He started the Mojave, and I think unfortunately he only made amps for a little bit of time, but it's I think he's sort of reimagined a little bit the way that the Marshall handles its gain, and it's just like Eddie Van Halen in a box sort of thing, right? Like a souped up. It's not like a modded high gain Marshall, but it's got that like almost like stickiness to the strings that you know when you think about like Van Halen lick, like this. It's like there's something that pops off kind of secondary on the string.
Sure.
It sort of does that. Yeah, it gets used quite a bit. Like if it's as long as it's not too modern of a lead sound, like if it's probably that amp. If it's that distorted Marshall thing over the plexis. The plexis will get turned on for the plexi thing, but really if I want it to like you just plug in. Yeah, and it's incredible sounding. Yeah.
I wonder what happened to him.
I think he's a real estate agent now.
Oh.
Yeah, I think he's
Probably more money in that.
Yeah.
And then of course a rather beautiful amp, the Highwall Custom 100.
Yep. So that's a 73. So it's got the 4 input. Same thing. It has the RFT tubes in it that make it almost too robust because you look inside of a Highwatt and it makes the Marshalls look like a joke because it's so clean and so organized and like it's incredible. And power wise, like, when the Marshall like is done, the Highwatt's just getting started, so it's kind of a scary amp to use because it'll blow everything, but it's it also has a ton of headroom. So you can get it's a great pedal platform, David Gilmour knew that, and
right.
you can plug a fuzz or something into that where it's still relatively clean and you just get a really big tone out of it where a fuzz sounds great into a Marshall, Jimmy knew that, but it's, it's a different sort of sound where it's more spongy, where with the Highwatt it's big, and articulate.
I know the wizard because our mutual friend Bob Marlette really loves those amps.
There's something, I grew up and if it wasn't Metallica, it was not music, Metallica had done a covers album talking about, love of covers, right? They had done, and there's a tone on some of those recordings that I just, like, I like when I was a kid, I was like, damn, this is the tone I like, right? It wasn't the Black Album or Master of Puppets. It was like this tone, I can't remember who I was speaking to about it, who was in the sessions and said, oh yeah, it's a wizard. I'm like, what the hell's a wizard? And from what I understand, it was the amp tech from AC/DC. So built this, and it makes sense. If you could feel on the side, there's like these handles on the side. And if you've ever like really spent enough time lugging around like a Marshall or something, that handle's a pain in the butt. It like once it hits your knees, you carry this and it's incredibly heavy, but like this makes a lot of sense. So it makes sense that a tech that would have to deal with these amps would design them. So that story kind of adds up. So yeah, it's a really great rhythm sound. That's what I like it for.
Soldano.
Another really, really great rhythm sound. They're older, so you pick them up used. This particular one, had a 12 AT 7 tube in the phase inverter in the last stage, so it's lower kind of gain than a 12 AX7. And I thought, oh, the buyer was telling me that, I'm like, that's going to get replaced, And I plugged it in. I was like, wow, no, it's not. It's incredible, right? And so it's just one of those things that like I probably never would have tried something like that. You get it from somebody and they've got it set up a certain way, and it turns out that it's really great and unique and a little bit different. So this one, has 12 AT7 on the phase inverter.
Obviously, you have a Kemper profiler. Let's just say you get the great sound up. Are you immediately capturing it going, you know what,
I've never turned it on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. One of my closest friends was introduced to me by a guy named Matt Skaggs, he was the keyboard programmer of a record I was an assistant on. Stage and Sound Studios? It's gone now, right? So Mark and Stefan Fantini, right? When I was a teenager, I was an assistant there. And there's a band from Chicago. Matt was from Chicago, and he was brought in to do keyboard programming. Years later, introduced me to now one of my closest friends, a film composer. And Matt and I are still friends. And he had sent it to Jorg, the composer, who then he's like, well, I'm going to send it over to Matt. I haven't had a chance to even turn it on yet. So, it's kind of there taking up space, but not that it's not great. And we have a lot of musicians that come in here, especially for the film dates, that bring the Kempers, and we could just DI them, and it's incredibly simple. So they're great, but I haven't had a chance to mess with but that's exactly what I'm doing. I want to see if I can't profile the stuff and see how close it comes.
Yeah, I'd be intrigued to see what you think.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the dual rectifier.
Yeah, everyone knows that amp. That's been, I think that's a early 2000s or something, kind of the model that they sold 1 million of. And it's like, I remember when I was kind of developing bands in the early 2000s. It's like the second they got their deal, they got the Boogie would send them a rectifier, PRS would send them a couple guitars for the video. It was like the recipe of that 2000s rock sound. You had to have one if you're making records at that time. So that's what I traded an orange amp for that. One of the musicians I was working with, they had one, and that's just been with me probably since, I don't know, 2004 or something.
And
Still
what's the crank?
Crank was one of the ones we talk about, like being in the room and with other musicians. And there was a band named Finch. And
Finch.
Yeah, and Mark Trombino was
Young
was
kids.
producing. Yeah.
Yep.
I was equally as young. And Mark Trombino was producing. I had my manager was a gentleman named Freddie Puro. So I had when I was working at O'Henry, because I was a young kid, I got invited into a lot of sessions that probably normally someone in that, the runners weren't getting invited in, but I was just kind of young, hungry, and I'd luck out, right? So I kind of got like the things like, look, if you want to I'd bring in like demos or whatever, say, look, you don't want to be an engineer, you're a producer, you're like doing this or that or the other. This is what you need to do. You need to go record bands and get those bands somewhere, and you'll something to figure. Okay. So the night tech at O'Henry at the time, he would get tons. I mean, and when we talk about the gear collection in that studio is absolutely insane. And he basically said, look, here, you can use some of this gear. It's still being fixed. Just get it back. Then we went to the band's rehearsal studio. That band ended up kind of getting a bigger manager or whatnot. And I took it to some of the people that would frequent O'Henry. And they said, hey, look, this is pretty good. I got someone I know. I think he'd be interested in meeting you. I was like 18. So I went to Ocean in Burbank and, met with him. I got actually, the tech kicked me out the door when he asked me all these questions that I absolutely didn't know about technical stuff. And I was, it's like, just in very harsh words, you're nothing, you will never be anything, leave. I remember walking down the stairwell and like absolute, like, man, I'm a loser.
Dejected.
And someone said, hey, wait, Freddie wants to speak with you. So I came in there and says, oh, give me your recording. And within that conversation, he called someone else in the room, says, here, give, take Matt to Mama Joe's and give him the keys. And from that evening on, it had a Trident console on it, racks of Pultecs and everything else, and it was mine. And I, would mix the records that he needed me to do and then produce stuff on the side. At the time at Ocean, all the rock bands, so it was like Evanescence, Fall Out Boy, all these bands were recording there. One of them was Finch, Mark Trombino. I had worked with him on a band called Rilo Kiley. Mm-hmm. And so I was in the studio then. They had brought in these amps. I think they must have been from Arizona, and that's where the crank was from. And they said, oh, these are like these prototypes of this new amp company. I was like, man, these sound pretty good. A lot of those, I think both of these records were, what was that first big Fall Out Boy record? We were going back and forth in days, and I think those two amps are on it because I just said, oh yeah, was letting them borrow the amps we had set up. But all these bands at that time were working all at the same time in the studio, talking about a communal experience. And I said, oh, I'd like one of those. It sounds really good. They connected me with the guy. That's serial number 4.
Wow.
And another amp that I brought to Mark Cameron at the kind of same time period, early 2000s. And he like cleaned it up a couple things inside, point to point at some things. And it's just one of those amps that stayed with me for forever. And it's kind of cheesy looking. But what it does, it's incredible.
And what does it do? What do you use it for?
Very articulate high gain. So where the Soldano is like a wall of chaos, like it just eats, you get the whole wall of sound. That's very articulate. So a very articulate rhythm sound. And actually in the last recording we did, when we did War Pigs, we combined one guitarist with the Soldano and the other with the crank, and that's the rhythm bed. And then we put the Mojave and Diesel over it as that mid-range. So it worked quite well. I
see you have a SVT.
Yep. So another one of those things that's kind of built in, we use the DI. So the bass player, pretty much anytime I'm using any guitar setup, I go into a sewer buffer box, and that gets split out to either like a clean DI or wherever else I might be taking into the amp. In this case, there's 2 DIs. There's an Evil Twin out there, DI, that I've had forever. And they come into here, into that, it's another Cappy preamp, that silver one there. Which actually is the same preamp as the VP28s we built. It's like, I think they call it the VP28 Platinum. It's got the meter on it, which is kind of what I needed. So I can monitor the sound coming in at the level, and then that goes into one of those Heritage compressors and then into the amp. So I'm kind of working a chain because I want to keep that amp. It's the V4B, so it's only 100 watts, and I want to keep it right on the edge of breakup. So that way, when the bass player's chugging along, if like I get just the tone I want, and then he kind of nails like the low E, I don't end up with a distorted mush. So I can keep the sound really solid. So I just strap that on the front of it with a reamp box.
You know, Dave Jordan and Brian Karlstrom would do that as well.
Really?
Yeah, they would use the Summit audio.
Yeah.
That compressor, they would compress the DI before they put it into the amp.
It works.
And it gives you a really even bass tone. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just tired of basically bass players. It's really hard. You pick up a bass. It's a hard instrument to get every note just right in the zone. So that was the solution. It works really well.
Well, I suppose let's go and check out amps and pedals and all kinds of other fun stuff.
Yeah. This is the area where we typically do vocals. We'll do, if anything that sort of needs isolation. It's one big space, but you'd be surprised how isolated things can be. So sometimes when people are more used to a normal large room, let's say a east-west or something like that, they're looking for gobos and other sorts of isolation. But the way the room has been designed, it sort of negates the need for those things, which sounds counterintuitive, but it works.
I will say it's not dead in here, but it's not overly live.
Right. And you'll find that each space kind of has, this is the guitar area, this is the drum area. It all has a different vibe to it.
What's your cue system I see over here?
It's just a super simple Behringer, I think they're called power plays. And honestly, they're rock solid. Everyone seems to know how to work them. And we just send like 8-ats, 8-at out of our interface and into there, and everyone can make their own mix, and it's super cost effective and easy.
Great.
I feel like Behringer, like when 20 years ago, you'd look at Behringer like, no one's,
it's just like products to products, isn't it?
Yeah, now they're quite good. Like their stuff is, we've had a couple of venues send us live recordings where they have the Behringer mixer, it's like the digital with the mic, and it's honestly not horrible, coming from.
Do we walk past the Neves?
You can take a look at them. Yeah, right. Yeah, no one cares about those anymore.
Oh yes, they do. Yeah, rather lovely. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the 2264s. Gorgeous.
Yeah, fun times.
What piano you got there?
So Yamaha C7.
Lovely.
So this was owned by like an actor passed away. They auctioned everything. So it's just one owner. It's from the mid-90s. So it was virtually unplayed when we got it. I was out of town and we're looking for a piano and someone had this next to a Steinway B, and Steinway B that's like the most beautiful piano ever. You want to record a Steinway B, you're good, right? Well, maybe a little dark, but this was the next one, and I think Zulma had gone to the piano, and I was like, man, just through the iPhone, that's an incredible sounding piano. And I asked Jorg, who was playing, I was like, hey, how's this thing sound? He's like, it sounds amazing. I said, okay, we'll take a chance on it.
For the record, I'm equally not a musician as well. This is she wrote, boys.
It's gorgeous. You've still got it. You've got it so you can move it, which is smart.
That's the thing. So it's odd. We had liked to record it in the middle of the room, and there was still something missing from the way the kind of. I like pianos or I like instruments in general that react off a wall or a space. So we kind of said, look, this is the best place for the piano. There's something here, and we built these diffusers that kind of, almost like a convection oven. It almost like sends to circulate the sound, and you could probably maybe hear it a little bit when you're standing next to the soundboard. Like there's some early reflections there that are quite pleasing. So we like to record it here. We for the film sessions, they'll take it in the middle of the room, and it sounds like a different piano.
It's wild. I played it in the middle the other day, and I was like I really had an appreciation for this area now. It just the sound stays perfectly over here, but out here it kind of disperses everywhere.
Yeah, it's in its box here. Yeah.
And obviously with the amount of filming you do, you need to have it so it's easy to move.
Yeah, otherwise you'd probably kill the little tiny gold wheels they give you, if even that's even possible.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Well, quite nice high ceilings. Gorgeous. I love the stop sign. Is that the stop sign? Gretsch kit?
Is that what they call it? It's, everyone wants the I think they're all Jaspers up to a certain point. It's got, the silver paint inside.
It's gorgeous.
But I'm really, even with the rock guys, will come here and they'll see, I just use ambassador heads, so single ply.
Yep.
But I like the way they throw into the room. So, they're dead after a session. But, with these shells and that, it's, you can really get some of the drums thrown into the room mics rather than just a cymbal wash.
So the KM here?
KM84s, right?
Yeah.
Although that'll change, depending. If I want something meaty, it'll be like an M160 or something.
Are those C12As?
C12As, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so typically
For
between,
overheads?
yeah, those are Coles.
What, are those Shores?
Sure,
Yeah.
181. So I got so tired of the 421. It was such a, look, you put it on the tom, it sounds great, but it's like everyone has that same tom sound. And I went through the Josephsons, and those were really, really good microphones.
Those are really good, yeah.
And then I landed, there was something I was still kind of missing from the kind of proximity effect that the 421s would give. And so and I think they're made for live use, but they're incredibly good. And they have kind of the best attributes, the very quick transient response of the small diaphragm Josephsons, but also a little more like proximity, what you would think in a live sound mic, sort of built into them. So to me, they're the best of the both worlds. And when I'm using those ambassador heads, I get a really hard transient on the mic and it throws out into the room where I can get a more darker, richer sound. So it's kind of, they work together to make it happen.
It's gorgeous. Is that a FET 47?
FET on the outside, and it's just one of the newer AKG, I think a D12 VR, I think is the name on the inside. It's
Right.
quite a good mic. If it wasn't that, it'd be a 421.
Fantastic.
Pretty light mic setup compared to what I saw last week.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's just I had everything ripped out. I'm so OCD.
I wanted to leave it all up because it looks like a battlefield in here, just everything kind of
Yeah.
all around. And Matt's like, no,
I
we gotta
can't
put
do it.
away.
I
I'm
like to have a
all right,
clean,
dude.
do the session, clean the studio, and start from scratch. Colin probably hates me, the engineer, because I'm just start it all over again. But I feel like I want to be organized.
Did you
for the session.
assist?
Do I assist with the setup?
No, did you assist? Did you come up as an assistant?
I started a studio called O. Henry. So I don't know if you know that studio. That was, do you remember O. Henry?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so we did a lot of orchestral dates. I was a teenager. I couldn't be a runner because I couldn't go get alcohol. So I ended up being the night kind of guy at the desk, and then we'd do the setups because we'd turn around. So you'd have the orchestral sessions in the day, and then you'd have the pop sessions at night, and everything. When I see kids out of recording school right now, and I was like, who taught you guys? Because when you went there, it was like a military camp. We had a night tech, a day tech, it was, and you couldn't fart without them telling you how to do it properly. And this, it's just this, there was a way to do things, and that's how it was it's beat into your head that's how you do it. And I think I just took that with me.
That makes sense.
Forever.
I just assume when you talked about things being tidy and organized, I was like, oh, he must have come up as an assistant and been beaten up.
Yeah, especially on a scoring stage, you don't want somebody to trip or,
Sure.
I remember the first time I was working on a tape machine and, you get a little bit of dirt and they're like, man, that is not okay. And you're like, well, I'm just making a record. It's like, that's not how you make a record. This is how you make a record,
What are your room mics here?
So I'll typically have, if it's the drums, there'll be a set of 49s and then a 47 and an RD8 stereo ribbon.
Lovely.
So there's kind of an array, and I kind of want to just be able to pull up the room mics and have a balanced kit. So I'm not trying to capture one thing or the other. I just want balance.
Yep.
And then if we're doing guitars, that same theme of bouncing things off of walls, I'll do an AE and N8. So it's like an active ribbon mic. And I like to put guitars here and sort of bounce them off that little kind of diffusion panel.
Sure.
And I'll put that mic where I'm canceling out the, direct sound from the amp and just getting the reflections. So
it's how much experimenting, and did you have somebody come down and go through this with you for all the diffusion and everything?
No, I mean, I did it myself. I just been doing it, long enough and experimented in other locations. This actually didn't need a lot. I knew I had the space. The second I threw out, we're going to have a lot of sound isolation, all that stuff, and just thought of this as one big acoustic environment, it became kind of we can have a 12-foot bass trap without worrying about, real estate or whatever else. And we'll use it as a tech room, So when you take away those things of that wall needs to be hard, you can just kind of open yourself up to this would be magical if I could do these things. Mm-hmm. We sort of did them. So I knew if I was going to design, something for the drums, what I would do, where I'd want the, reflection, where I'd want the absorption. So behind all these walls, they're fabric, but then there's different arrays of wood and things to sort of hide what's going on in the room. But, if we had a really loud guitar amp in here, you'd blatantly notice the difference between it being where it was kind of designed to be or somewhere else.
Now, the panels that are floating on the top here,
right?
Did you make them? Did you buy them?
Yeah, so we made everything. Everything basically, we went and, Home Depot, you get they get like a remodel, like home loan thing, right? That's what we're like, oh yeah, great. Like we get one of those, and the big truck shows up and we just built it all of ourselves.
It was a dramatic experience.
Yeah.
Like watching, I'm obviously on a much different side of the company than the studio, but just watching these guys. Matt, I feel like doesn't explain it as dramatic as it was, but those were like 18-hour days.
Yeah.
Like everyone just by hand, kind of trial runs on a lot of stuff too. It's like you figure out one thing and you're like, oh, maybe this would be the right way.
How many panels? I mean, this is a lot of panels.
I can't even. Yeah, the amount of just Owens chlorine and all that.
There were some near-death experiences putting those ones up.
This is probably the worst design I have is here because we kept trying to figure out how we're going to hang these panels, and it's, I'm least proud of the way we did it with the PVC pipes. There are such better ways to have done that. Like looking back, it's functional, it works great. It's structurally sound, but it was just the wrong way to go about doing it easily.
What do you think you would do different?
I think I'd probably just have run like a steel line and then hung everything from the line because those pipes were so difficult to work with and get the heights correct. Looking at them, you wouldn't know, but
they look fantastic.
Yeah, that's an inside secret, I suppose.
Yeah, but the process took a lot longer than I would have hoped it would, and we had to actually take everything down one time. So we did it. It wasn't. It
was crazy because we were trying to get up for business. We had just moved, and there was a month or two of downtime already, so it was all hands on deck trying to get everything back together. And then Matt, through that whole time, was like, well, I want to build like the studio of my dreams and like how I want to work. And I'm like, well, there's a business side, as well. And Zulma would chime in. It's like little things like the glass and then this and that. And it was really just all about kind of building how you wanted to work. And
I just threaten Luke. I say, well, if I don't do it my way, then I'll never record.
That's what he says. He says all the time. He's like, I'm just going to go away. I'm never going to record music again. I'm like, all right, dude, build whatever studio you want. Then we'll figure out how to sell it. And then sure enough, you built a big space that everyone loves being in. And then the film stuff, like that's how
that was the big bet. We didn't know if it would work. And I saw, the church in London, I saw they had a big, I was like, someone was, to me, this is one big bedroom. And we were finding even in the production spaces, either when we had our last space, someone would want to be in the control room with us working like a vocalist, or they'd want to be hidden away in the booth and turn off the lights so you can't see me through the window, right? So it's like, well, this seems to be the way that everyone is getting used to working from being in home studios so much anyway. They're not, I always hated when, you'd be putting a food order in, right? And they think you're saying something about their performance. Like, I just ordered a sandwich. Like it was, but everything, when that talkback mic is not on, the musician is, self-critical and they're thinking, what are they talking about? I'm not involved in the conversation. In this room, for better or worse, everyone's involved in every conversation. But it's a weird, everyone's at ease. They just, and it's a big vibe.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed from these sessions. Even last week, this room's kind of like a whole different vibe when there's so many people in it. You got drums here, like Rudy was playing the bass right there, and then we had two guitarists, basically, one here, and they're like wielding solos together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have vocals back there, and it's like for Matt to be able to be right there and just talk with them, it's like I couldn't even imagine if there was glass there, how they would feel like. Just the inclusivity of having a room like this is really like you see the final product and how that
there's a teamwork thing that happens rather than a musician versus production staff thing. Like us versus them, it doesn't exist anymore. It's more of a teamwork space.
How are you monitoring? You on headphones or are you just monitoring quiet?
Yeah,
in-ears.
In-ears. And when we're cutting vocals, there's plenty enough separation between the spaces where we're just on the speakers. So it's not a big deal.
What in-ears?
Shure, I don't know. It's like 5.4. They're actually incredible. The Shure, we have Shure headphones as well. And they're not the expensive ones or anything, but I find them they're really good.
They're very comfortable.
They surprised me.
Super comfortable.
Yeah, I was surprised because I thought I was like, let's just see, and they're quite good.
I think we're just going to have to get the guys to do like a pan over here because we're talking like 1, 2, 3 walls of amps and pedals. I mean,
as it should be.
As it should be, yes. Yeah. Well, let's go for a couple of highlights. So, what year's the Vox?
63 Vox. So this is before the top boost, right?
Okay.
I love
Bulldogs?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Good.
just the blue Vox, the blue speakers in the back. They made 3 iterations of that circuit. So there was like an AC30B, N, and a T. And there's basically different capacitor configuration as far as like if it was at a bass amp, kind of normal or treble.
Right.
So that's an N. That's the one I like is just crank it up and it's got just great mid-range to it.
Wow.
So that's, pretty much it's always being pulled out because it's the classic sound.
Do you have a treble booster to get your Brian May on?
Absolutely. Yeah, they're there. There's a couple. Yeah. And it sounds great doing it.
Okay, divided by 13.
Yeah, that's just the other component to the same head that's in there. So it's
Okay.
also blues in here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh,
But a different sound, right? It's just a different tone than that. Yeah. Vintage, kind of new, but same
Right.
realm, but a little different.
With so many pedals, I mean, there's a go-to stuff. Are these all pedals you would use yourself? Are you covering bases because
Exactly. So these are like sort of the bass area and then
Yep.
kind of like the more pop stuff that I use. So this is kind of like bass and pop.
Right.
And you kind of go to different sections and they're kind of there for, those are the pedals I would pull out for that sort of sound. So each sort of location has its own thing going on.
Couple of things I don't know. I don't know this. Analog Man by compressor.
Yeah, so it's got
Compressor?
what is it? It's got the Ross and the orange squeeze circuit both in it. So you can use either them uniquely or simultaneously.
Very nice.
Yeah, so Analog Man, he would go and he was one of the early modders of like the old, modding this pedal or that pedal or like original chips,
Great.
just really great sounding.
I love the nerdiness of that. That's fantastic. Mono synth, based balls.
There's the Cliff Burton influence,
Yeah.
if you think about the bass tone and the solo tone, it's like an envelope filter sort of thing.
so good.
We use it with like modern indie type rock bands because
Yeah.
it's got a cool envelope with the distortion, which is kind of like mimicking a synth.
Yeah.
You can do that really well with that pedal.
That's amazing. What's this? What's the Fox Rocks Octron 2? I don't know that.
So it's got a switchable octave up and down. So you have like a direct octave up and octave down that you can independently switch in and out of the circuit or globally, right? Depending on your settings.
Yep.
And then a level control for the mixer of the octave up, the direct, and the octave down.
Great.
Yeah, tracks really well. Really cool sound.
Endangered audio research.
Yeah, just this is like if you think like Radiohead in a pedal.
Nice.
Just tweak it. There's all sorts of like different like you can connect it to like your synthesizer and do different things with it and it's actually kind of too much effort if you just need a quick sound. It's one of those things if you want to waste like if you're like Matt, I really would like to get away for 4 hours. I'd say take this home and enjoy yourself, and have a drink. It's one of those pedals.
What's this? The big.
That's another English thing. Right, but there's like an EL84 in there, so it's basically a guitar amp, and I'm a huge Flood fan.
Oh,
Yeah, and they were talking about using these to reamp synths, right, and give a little more. And I was like, I wonder, that's kind of cool. And I found one, and I was like eBay or something, right? And I was like, I'll check that out, and it's like really cool, and you can plug a guitar into it, so that means you can also plug in one of the green harmonica mics and throw it in a drum kit, and then plug it into this.
great.
And it's got like a line out and a speaker out.
Nice.
But if you plug this into like the Divide by 13, it's quite loud for just a single little, like
Really?
it's deceiving, like will get loud.
More over here. What a lovely collection of amps here. I mean, you've got some what I would consider like must-haves. A deluxe.
We name, when we film, we name the walls by like, this is the blackface wall, that's the tweed wall, right?
Gorgeous. This is a must-have amp.
Yeah, 60s. That one, it had the old JBL speakers and talked about like really high output speakers, right? It was an Alnico, the original one that everyone wanted. I hated the sound. It was so sort of like bright and ice picky. I was on forums or something, and someone was like, oh, these cannabis rec speakers, right? I think they're made out of like a cannabis cone. Incredible in that amp. I put that in there, 10 years ago. And it's never come out, and everyone that plays that amp is like, that's the best deluxe. The thing is that because you have that, you can really, you already see the volume set to 7.5, which quite a bit of gain there.
Yeah, yeah.
And we've gone through it, and I've every single tube and everything's kind of been tweaked for that, do what I want it to do, and it gets again another amp that's used pretty much. It's like that deluxe set up next to the Vox on a traditional kind of rock session.
I'm going to go down to the Super Reverb because that's a personal favorite of mine. That's a Roy Buchanan amp. Just a great amp. Jack Douglas talked to me a lot about using Super Reverbs on many of the records he produced.
I think it's the 10-inch speakers that are a little bit spikier sounding without that ice pick, and they're very focused, But then you get the bigger, the 6L6s. It's a loud amp. But it's I think it's probably the most unique because if you're plugged into the Deluxe Reverb and you go to the Vibrolux, which also is the 10s and the two 6L6s, they share a lot in common. You feel like, but on the Super, it feels like a whole nother thing, even though every one of these amps has the exact same preamp circuit. Like all of that era of Fender, it's the same exact amp. They just changed the output section to have a different power transformer and output transformer for the bigger tubes. That's it. So this has the same configuration as the Vibrolux, just different transformers with different ohms, for different configuration of speakers, but they sound completely different.
You've got, what's this? A Skin Pimp Mark III.
So there's another one of those builders that they're forever gone now. Kind of on it's like the collectible indie, the underground market where that guy was building. I think he was responsible for a lot of the remakes in the same casings, those original, bringing back the old circuits, but everything inside of there is the original vintage components, NOS components. And in each of those pedals was only, he only built a couple.
Wow.
So
fantastic.
and he's always has very interesting artwork. There's some more on the other wall.
What is this? What's the 33?
This is kind of like the Meshuggah. Right?
Okay.
So what that does is we'll take that and put into the crank, and it just tightens up all the lows, and it's a very aggressive mid-range. So it's kind of like, if you think about it, you turn it, it's almost like a tilt EQ, but very, but not, but that same kind of concept.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So many pedals here. I don't know where to start. Animato.
More fuzzes, yeah. So this is, unique, I think, like a Japanese, I want to say.
Right.
Fuzz that, I think I got from Japan.
I love to look at it. It's
way too tall, right?
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, they're just like little works of art, if nothing else. Even if they sound beautiful, it's still great works of art.
It's like my biggest fear is sounding like something else that's been done. And so much has already been done with guitar. Like, how do you even attempt to sound unique?
Right.
And I think that's where the pedals come in.
Solid gold effects. These two here.
These are, basically their variation of a fuzz face. So I think I probably have 20 different pedals that are all like a fuzz face thing, but they're all completely different.
This is a fantastic flanger.
I mean, that's everyone knows
fantastic flanger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Electric Mistress, small stand phase shifter, gorgeous.
Sometimes I plug in the Electric Mistress and pretend I'm in the police.
Wonderful. Zvex.
Yeah.
So has this got the pad where if you
exactly, and it's a wall. Yeah, you can make crazy tones with it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a Fat Rat and what's unique about this?
This is something new they're making, and they've changed around where you can have the stock or the fat, and it's sounds like no other Rat. It can be cleaner. It can be more kind of stout and not as loose. And you would put that in places where you normally wouldn't put a Rat, but you want something that your head says, I want a Rat. But a Rat is too much.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's too extra.
Well, Zvex up there. These are little beautiful works of art. The Zvex pedals. Just gorgeous. When I first saw these come out, and I just like how they're all hand painted.
Yeah. I had a really cool old one, really kind of beat up, that was stolen along with some other stuff. And I was like, that was the one pedal. I was like, man, I wish that one sounds exactly the same, but it's there, you get attached to the artwork because the original ones, they're so unique. Everything had its own unique thing, and you more miss the art than the pedal itself.
I know people love the Earthquaker stuff. I know you have quite a lot of that. Wonderful. What's this here?
That's like an octave. So to just do the octave on top, sort of like we were talking about the other one, just a totally different sound, more stringy sounding. So if you kind of want to get a, it's stringy. I don't know how to describe. I use weird descriptions for sound, but it's stringy.
No, I know what you mean. I get lost in here. The Friedman.
It's classic. Could do multiple different wah tones.
Oh, I like that action on that. That's
Yeah.
so smooth.
I'd say out of the new Waz,
I'm gonna put my foot on it, everybody. Sorry. Oh yeah.
And it's great to play. There's multiple different sounds you can get with it.
Oh,
It's just a good wah. It's just one of those things where it's just a tool. It's a good foundational thing. You need a wah tone. It's great.
Fantastic. Hyper Fuzz. I see a lot of Boss stuff.
Yep.
This I was like talking about because one of my favorite guitar tones is Graham Coxon. And I was asking on Chemical World, and I was like, "What is that sound you got?" Thinking he was going to tell me that it was some boutique Japanese
Crazy
pedal from the
expensive,
60s.
yeah.
He's like BF2, everything in the middle.
Some of the Boss stuff is actually incredible. Everyone wants to go boutique or whatever, but I'd say like this Boss stuff comes out more than any of the other stuff because it just does what it does. You know,
it's
and
reliable and works.
Exactly.
And a CE2 is a classic, and I have one of these as well. I mean, it's just this line here, Dimension C. I mean, these are classic pedals.
Yeah, they do. Again, when you plug them in, people, that's the sound.
Oh, I love that's the sound.
Yeah. Some of these, like the vibrato pedal, that's like you could plug that in and play like a part with it, just turn on to give motion to it without knowing there's a vibrato on it. It's, where
Beautiful.
If you used it on another vibrato pedal, you blatantly hear that vibrato. That's like you can have it like an always on thing just to add some drama to a part, or help out maybe a player that needs it.
Yeah, gorgeous. A couple of Ibanez there. The stereo chorus and the analog delay. I remember when I first saw those with the typeface.
I think that might be the first analog delay pedal.
Yeah,
like
you might be right.
I think it was the first one because it doesn't have a lot of time. It's very gritty. But I think that might have been the first one.
It's interesting. It's pretty much the same color as the DM one though, which is the Boss one.
Yeah.
So who copied who? More Earthquaker, gorgeous. Quantum time. I'm not sure if I've heard one of those yet.
Pretty cool. It reacts to the input signal. So the harder you hit it, the more it will modulate.
Yeah, and I don't want to gloss over the Earthquaker if people think I'm moving over quickly. This stuff is absolutely fantastic. Pretty much every guitar player I admire rates Earthquaker pedals pretty darn heavily. Wait, do you know where they're made? Ohio.
Wow.
In Akron. Wow.
Akron. Unique sounding. They can definitely do things. It's almost scary to pull them out with guitarists because they'll get lost in and they'll just have too much fun and lose track of what we're doing.
Whammy pedal.
Classic.
Yeah, definitely.
Another analog man.
Analog man.
Yep.
And then what's the MF ring? Oh,
it's a ring filter or a ring, ring modulator. So it's kind of weird, crazy. John Bryan, I'm a huge fan, and he'll sometimes use that sort of sound and kind of try to mimic it.
And then there's a whole bunch of pedals here, which I almost went past, but I do have to go to this, the Companion. You got this from Matt Hyde? I remember when Matt was selling a whole bunch of stuff. Has he got
that's probably the
got
time
that big sale, yeah. This, I don't know.
It's like the kind of Black Keys sound.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so you can do the tone select and it kind of inverts the sound and gets really mid-range dipped or reverse,
Great. Pumpkin Pie.
It's sort of like a take on the Silicon, sound that was obviously during the grunge era and Billy Corgan, obviously,
Must point out the fact that you actually have the box for the CE1 as well as
important, right?
Yeah.
It was the JHS pedals. He's got the box. I love that show. It's great.
DS1 is that an original one of the old Japanese ones? Yeah. Oh yeah, there it is.
These are like the magic settings of these old, it's like gain, drive all the way down, everything else all the way up and plug it in and then just watch what it does to the amp.
Yeah, because when I first heard one of those, I was like, that's not a very good distortion sound. I didn't like it.
Turn it off, and just use it to because it's an EQ is what it is.
Yeah,
it's an EQ.
This, on the other hand, is it's still one of my favorite distortion pedals ever.
And a classic on a lot of records where it's not amp distortion and it's unique.
Yeah, I think I did see a review on this a couple of years ago where people were arguing it's probably the best distortion pedal ever made. Answers on a postcard, please. I'm sure everybody will disagree with that statement, but I don't know. I mean, they probably sold bazillions of the bleeding things.
There's probably more.
Gary Moore into a front of a Marshall.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's a great pedal.
It works.
Yeah. I remember these when they first came out as well.
That's the Radiohead thing, right?
Yeah.
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 Those are, and surprisingly, that one, and there's a Governor over there, and we took the Governor into the Vox,
Yeah.
and it was like a Marshall Vox. It was so
Yeah.
you'd think it'd sound horrible, and it's one of those things that the guys in Radiohead did, and it's like, wow, that makes a whole lot of sense.
I think, wasn't it? John said we were talking to John Leckie yesterday, and he said on the bends that that Tom was like, let's get like every guitar and amp and pedal for Johnny to try out, and so they brought it all in, and they said they went through everything, and then Johnny just went, well, can I just use the blues breaker pedal into my Fender Twin with Metallicaster?
Classic.
And
Right?
there's a lot more of that on the album than
anything, right?
Yeah, which that's
the sound he's ended up using for like ever.
Yeah,
and it's just
phenomenal.
Yeah,
yeah, he's one of the great good soundmeisters, or whatever the word would be. More Earthquaker.
Right.
What's that?
That's like the early, like the kind of early Edge sound. So Boss made a fanny pack talking about JHS pedals, and you could like wear it as like a booster, right, with a battery, and he recreated it, but then you could adjust whether it has the EQ, right, no mids, full EQ, no EQ, and it's just kind of a different version. I think the model was it was like Boss, I'm gonna butcher this, like FZ1 or something like that, but it was green like this, and it was like you wore it on your belt. And the Edge Blade one, it's you kind of plug it in, you get the tone, you kind of know what it is, but it's just a boost unit. Think of like a treble booster, but EQable maybe, and some other things. But
fantastic.
Yeah,
love this.
Another Edge thing. Right? Yeah, that's from that the preamp of the delay.
And more Earthquaker, very heavily represented. So where do we go? Do we go and look at some snares,
or
do we go and
pedaled out, or do you want to?
Let's go and get the last of our pedal on. Well, now we're into a fuzz face world, I see over here.
Yeah, this is sort of like the classic rock area for pedals.
Great.
Yeah.
A 69, the Octa Fuzz, both absolutely fantastic pedals.
Yep.
And is this a reissue or original?
Yeah, these are reissues. All these, the Supro, these two Fenders, they're just they're good amps.
Fantastic.
It's like we have the vintage stuff, and then these keep up with them.
Sure.
Just fine. They sound really great. Actually tended to like these. Every time we would work with the original Tweed stuff, it seemed like there was either too much grunge, or like you kind of need to commit to that sort of thing, right? Which, I mean, you record an amp, you do commit, but these, there just seems to be a little more play if I'm working. If it was just me making my own records, the vintage stuff, it's all fun. But when you're dealing with outside players, you need maybe a little bit more fine control, or it can get squealy too fast. Or if you're coming out every 30 seconds saying, hey, let's manipulate the tone, it just ruins the vibe. So with the Tweed stuff, I like the sound, and it seems like it's in there, but it's also usable.
Right, great. Micro synthesizer. What's this here?
Another wah pedal. So this is a recreation. So it's made by Wilson Effects, and it's the gray clone, the Vox, from what Jimmy Page would play. So it's got that very unique voicing to it. So it's the Jimmy Page wah sound.
Wow.
Yeah. So the guy, you talk to him, he again hand builds it, and it's got it's a pretty roadworthy, like heavy.
Oh
yeah.
It's got some weight to it.
Yeah.
Oh, again, beautiful action.
Yeah. And he builds them, and he'll it's just they're very unique sounding. Very unique sounding. But it has that thing that Jimmy had on like the first couple records,
Amazing. And then Dynaranger.
That's
divided by 30.
Treble booster. Another ZVEX, yeah. So crackle okay, because when you turn it, everything is crackle. The way the circuit's designed, right? But it crackles, but it's really high, talking about impedance, really high impedance input. So it's like very bright, and just can really drive into something. Yeah.
I don't know what that is. What is a Badger Plex Trilogy?
Basically the front end of an Echoplex, right? Like EP3, and they've got different versions of like, the different preamps.
Fantastic.
And just another one of hand-built guy built them, and I tried all the different ones, and that was like the one that's like, oh, that's great. It can be like an always-on pedal if you want that sound.
This is probably one of the most useful pedals ever made.
Ever, yeah. Actually, yeah. You probably just get away with that. You don't need all this other crap.
Yeah, because you can just shape any sound you want.
Pretty much.
It's really just a brilliant idea, because it can be your gain boost. So there you go. You want to drive your amp a bit heavier, just use it for that. You can just turn up the level. You can also crank everything. But the fact that you can shape the low end, so if you've got like a big floppy low end, amp, you can just wipe it off there. You want to push the mid range. You want to do the opposite. You want to scoop it out. And really, really smart pedal. I always just ended up when I was using them, just kind of taking the mid.
I was going to say, this is all it is. It's like you just do that, like just that, and then crank it. That's it.
And there you go. And then you turn it on, and it's like, whee! You're like, yeah, that's great.
I'm somehow better now. I'm a better guitarist now. Envelope filter, another envelope filter. So you can have, just depending on, the LBH just selects, high pass, low pass bell.
Nice.
Yeah.
OC2.
Yeah. Old Octa pedal. It's freaking awesome.
Phase 90. You want your Van Halen.
Yeah. It's always a pain in the ass because it's the original without the, and I don't want to be the guy that drills into it.
Right.
But I really want to. It's like every time I'm just going to open the thing up. And
open the thing up, change the battery.
It's a pain in the ass. I just want to be able to plug it in, right? But it just sounds, I'm waiting for them to make one that sounds like the original because there's some pedals that they sound great, vintage, the new ones, they sound really great. For whatever reason, this is just one of them that I haven't heard the new ones sound like the old ones,
Yeah,
so
I wonder what it is.
I have no clue. Yeah.
What's the full tone?
It's like a Univibe type of thing. I had an old Univibe, and there were certain things I liked, and I guess I've talked to some guys that said basically it's sort of like 1176 or something where everyone was slightly different in the way they calibrated it, and this is just it's another one of those things where you can give to a player. I got the power supply. It takes a unique supply. And you can set up a couple controls and give them the control of it, and then they'll sit there and it's like they instantly know what to do. Where like some of the other pedals where it's separate or they're not really engaged with the pedal. And I think with the Univibe, it's like, again, the Jimmy thing where he was engaging with the pedal and giving it that sound. The full tone seems to bring it out of the musician just because of the form factor. So it's... I
feel like we need to come back and do like a couple of hours and go through pedals.
And just turn them on.
Just have you set up on record
there
and
you
just
go.
Start going through.
Yeah. And then you could just be like, wow, he's totally full of it.
No, I mean, just let people hear for themselves. I love it. Absolutely love it. I think this would be amazing. There's the Evil Twin you were talking about.
Yeah. Favorite DI ever.
What are these down here?
These are literally just mixers. So there was a time I was combining like monophonic Moogs and I can combine them here to create like chords and things. So they're just, you can blend, just little mixers.
Bunch of DIs. I really like the Rupert Neve ones too.
Yep.
We use that on our guitars. It's really nice on guitar. Yeah. I'm sure it's nice on everything.
That's exactly what we use them for. We use them after the sewer split, and that's our clean DI feed.
Beautiful. Wow, little Summit audio. Talking of Summit, we mentioned it earlier.
Great tube DI as well.
Yeah.
Yep. So if it's not the Evil Twin, it's the Summit, and it's a really, really great DI.
Cigars, just in case.
I'm a huge cigar smoker. I'd be smoking one if you probably wouldn't tell me I'm not allowed to. But every person that either comes here or around enough, I get them into smoking cigars, and I think once they realize it's one of those things that you veg out for an hour and you could really focus yourself, and I find it like it helps, and everyone probably thinks it's absolute, crazy, but it helps me be focused and creative in a certain way.
No, keeps you relaxed. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe you. What's the black sheet? We did mention the full tones earlier, both fantastic. What's the, Black Arts Toneworks, I feel.
Yeah, so just a fun, I forget what they've kind of modeled that around, but it's very doomy, but in a kind of vintage way. It's very, that what you'd expect it would be with the biker on the front and the bats, the picture tells you 1,000 words.
More another skin pimp,
right? That's like a Mark II fuzz, right? So it's the same circuit, and this would be like a Mark I, right? Yeah. So tone benders, and that's what those are.
And what's that?
That's sort of like a muff, but different, right? So you can go through the different, like either germanium or silicon or none, and sort of just get a different variation on that tone. I find it works like this with the high watt if you're doing something Gilmore-y,
Wonderful.
This works well.
This is just absolutely beautiful. I saw this from the other side of the room, and I was just like, it looks like it's taken a tone bender, or what I should say is like a color sound, hence the color driver, and just shrunk it. Right. Because mine was like this big.
Exactly.
And it's just like this little mini.
Right. And talk about Gilmore, that would have been, another one of those things in his chain.
God, I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so smooth and gorgeous. Who's the company? Trufi.
So again, another one of those guys that finds the old components, and then he's put the volume. If you have the original one, you probably know how loud they get.
Yeah.
Right. So he's amended it with like a volume control.
Oh, So good.
Made it a
So
little simpler.
smooth.
Yeah.
Really nice. Oh, I love
And
this.
it works at 18 volts, you know, so it's like you're still getting the headroom of the original.
The same guy that made the original pedal, these original pedals, designed AC30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Classic.
It's absolutely classic. Original.
No, that's actually not. That's Analog Man modded to with all the original specs. So basically, he rips out the guts and he puts in all the original stuff.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's heavier than the original.
It's old.
Right.
You know, I don't know. You know, it's not like a new, but I mean, it's not, you know, the one that everyone pays $1 billion for.
The Mythical Overdrive.
Yeah, it's mythical. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of like a take on a clone, but different.
I was about to say it's like a little mini clone.
He did some, you know, all these guys, the great thing about the independent builders is you can call or email them and say like, look, I see this is what you do. This is what I would like it to do. Can you make me one that does that? Oh, and almost every time they're like, wow, that's really cool. Let me figure it out. And I've got a switch here where I can switch to different, the transistors inside. And it's just, you know, I can do what I always wish something would do. That's what I like about the smaller guys is that they're just open-minded. They tend to be, and you can have fun with it and then enjoy, you know, and tweak the toner. I don't like it. Let's mess with it more. Sure. I like, you know, just to get where you can pull it off the shelf and it does what you think it's going to do.
Sounds fantastic. Yeah. Thunder Tomate, Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
What is this?
Another, basically, that would be like the old Boss OD1 sort of sound.
Oh, wow. PDF2?
That's, I'm using all these bands to describe this stuff, but that's like
okay.
Queens of the Stone Age, that sort of thing. So almost like a very frequency boosted overdrive where you can adjust the frequency and the bandwidth of the boost.
Yeah.
And then the height, right? So how much boost you have. Yeah. And then just overall gain level. It's pretty cool. I always like when they put like switches like that.
I like that too.
It's pretty rad.
Yeah. Yeah. What's this?
That's literally just a mode control pedal for this. So you can control what this pedal's doing with an expression pedal.
And then this?
Another wah pedal.
Another wah. Who makes this one?
That's the Joe Bonamassa wah.
Oh yeah, I see Joe Bonamassa written on the front. Yeah.
It's very cool. Again, vocally, just the way it's tuned is just different than the other ones.
Crybaby.
It's not as extravagant as, you know, you would think. You could just, again, play a lead with it and someone might not say there's a wah pedal on it.
Right.
Right. It's just more cello-like in sound.
Right.
Than like where like the Wilson with the Jimmy Page thing, it's very much like squawk, squawk.
Right.
You know, that's more like cello Bowie. Right. So you can make the dynamic with it. So it's a wah, but it's just a totally different sort of thing.
Fuzz faces, don't want to ignore them.
Yeah. Just the basic. Another Bonamassa there. It works really well with humbuckers. That's what that one's kind of specialty is. If I've got a humbucker guitar that I want to use a fuzz on, it's going to be that one.
So we did mention a clone. Did you ever get one? Did you ever have one?
I never. Yeah, you know, I didn't get the fuzz. I liked the way you could do it. You know, and that was the draw for that one was that he can make something different. I tend to find things if I can get something that I like even better, I'll put it against the benchmark and then get rid of the original if it kind of surpasses it.
Sure.
Know? Not to say that surpasses it. It's just something different because I just didn't get along with it.
Yeah.
As
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, the lights are set up ready to go on the snares.
It looks pretty.
Some extra Gretsch toms.
Yeah.
Wow, you've got quite the collection here. You've got the ones I would always hope to have, which of course would be Supraphonic, Acrylite.
You always sound like a better engineer when you put these up because they're so easy to. You just put the mic in front of it, and then it's like, oh, okay, that's a snare drum.
I think for me, I can't. Every time if I go and see a band and I really like the drum sound, I'll go up and talk to the drummer afterwards. And I go, I love your snare sound, and it's usually always a Ludwig. And I wonder, is it because we're so used to hearing Ringo and John Bonham that we just associate a good snare sound with those two drummers?
I think it's also just the aluminum shell. There's a certain pop that comes off it. It's not too like we had a bell brass in here last week, right? And it's like it weighs 1,000 pounds. Anyone's picked up a Supraphonic knows it's like you could throw it across the room, right? It's nothing, and it's like you got to hit it the right way. You've got to so it's so particular to make the sound that you associate with like a bell brass, right?
Right.
Where like my son can play the Supraphonic and it sounds like a snare.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think it's just there's such a wide range of play that almost any drummer can sit down at that and make it sound. And then we've just associate that with it because it's so easy and user friendly. I mean, I think I got this Acrolite for like $100-something bucks.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the same shell, but then only 8 lugs. So I always think like I think in like chaos, like the less lugs, the more chaos. Right. You know what I mean? There's more overtones. You can't get the as much even tuning or whatnot. And I put the calfskin kind of style head on it, kind of kill it down. And it actually ends up, this drum actually probably record more than the Superphonic now.
Oh, wow. And then who's this?
Joyful Noise. So that's an aluminum shell, sort of like the Superphonic, but quite a bit different. It's another 8 lug drum, but the same kind of depth you'd associate with like a Bonham sort of aluminum drum. And if you think like this is kind of like 70s rock, this is modern country.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So like something like that where you still want like more, get like, I don't want to say like bro country, but something like that where it has some rock overtones, but still more controlled because you're not blaring out JCM 800s, So it's a little more refined, but it still has that thing.
This must be fun for drummers to come in. They just kind of,
You know what? It's funny because they'll look at it and then they'll kind of like walk away and think, just what do I do? Like they don't like, and maybe that's the drummer thing, but they don't want to like dive in. They don't want to talk. Guitarists will sit in front and they'll want to pull out all the pedals, but the drummers.
Well, the good thing for us as guitar players, we just plug it in and start playing.
That's what I was saying.
They put this up and then they have to start tuning it, and yeah. It's a little extra work.
Yeah. So like, well, you do what we need to. What do we need to do here and get it done?
So this is the tech shop, guitars, cables.
So it's a bit of a mess. That's we basically tech our gear or build our gear here. So we have everything we need. When we bring in new interns, the first thing we sort of like get them versed on is soldering using the stuff. I'd say that probably 90% of the guys, when they get brought back here, they'll quit. They're just, it's like, this is what it means to be an engineer, know how things work. They're like, well, just show me where Pro Tools and the plugins are, but there's a huge amount of knowledge when you can figure out, that's how something works, and understanding when you would use it, or even as it transfers into plugin land, because you're like, I get why a Pultec does what it does.
I've soldered enough in my life to know that I don't want to solder anymore.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. I've met people that...
you sure?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Eric, you want to do some soldering?
Yeah.
You didn't have to do any of that when you came to my studio. It was already all done. It was all plugged in and soldered. And
yeah, so that's that. And then we do guitar setups and stuff here. So this is all set. We have all of our tools and stuff.
Are you the guitar setup guy? Who's the...
I like to train new guys and try to do, but yeah, the gear's back. Yes. Drum tuning, everything. I try to stay away from it as much as possible, because I'll get distracted. But
what can we cherry pick? Because I see lots of gorgeous stuff here.
How about a 55 Gibson Jr.?
I'd love to see a 55 Gibson Jr. Oh yeah, look at that. That's gorgeous. Wow. That's gorgeous.
I love that guitar.
Yeah. This says rock and roll. This just says.
It doesn't look like it, but you plug that into like the diesel or something, and it'll rip your head off. Like how the fact that was Gibson's idea of like a beginner's guitar is like insanity to me.
Well, this one is simplicity, like one pickup, volume, tone.
Yeah. Make
it straightforward. This one's quite meaty. This one's got some weight to it. This is like a Les Paul. This feels...
Yeah.
Well, I'm a Tele guy. Do love the Telecasters.
61 Tele?
Yeah, okay, I see that. So this is 61. Oh, that's gorgeous looking. Oh, look at that. Thanks. Can I just put it in the back of the car now and take it?
Yeah, take it home, play with it. You playing it, it makes me miss plugging. Like I was like, see, this is the problem. With I bring someone back here, and then I'm like, okay, the way I can plug this into that and this into that, and then like we can go like do something with it. Let's go, the kid in me like comes right out. Like Like, let's just go do something.
It's great. Oh, it's such a great feeling neck. What do they call that? I mean, that's like is it like a perfect C?
I don't think it's, you know, I don't think it's quite a C.
I don't know
Yeah,
what
or
you
maybe
call
when
that.
you say that perfect, you know, because I have like kind of maybe they'd be modified Cs now, but it's actually quite thin where the junior's really meaty, you know, sort of the same time period. It's almost like that's a more modern, like something you'd find in a more modern instrument, but it's very comfortable. And you know, all these old handmade instruments, they're all so different. You pick up another one, the same year, same everything, and it's somehow a completely different guitar.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. Is this the original case or is it a later case?
As far as I know, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not very up on it. But I do have to, because I saw it, I do have to see if I can, would you mind showing me the 335?
Sure.
It's right in the corner. What year is that 335?
This is a 1983. So what makes it unique is that Gibson was trying to decide what they were going to do with their two factories, because they were going to shut one down.
Oh, wow.
And so they put out a sort of competition. And I think one from again, what has been explained to me is one, because I couldn't figure out why this guitar was so good.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like it's, you know.
Yeah. This, when I
hit the case on it.
Yeah, I know this guitar, because when I had a 72, and this kid that I was jamming with, and we're talking when I was 16 years old,
Sure.
had this age, and I remember the different color body to the neck,
Right.
and his was just played so well. Oh yeah.
So these would have the original Tim Shaw pickups in them that everyone kind of is looking for. And it would have been basically the sister of the sister factory, the factory that would have made the Heritage 80 series.
Oh yeah.
It's just been, you know, one of those things where I picked it up off the wall and I was like, oh, this thing sounds great. And I just couldn't, you'd think from, 83 Gibson, well, there's nothing special about that. But it's just one of those guitars.
Oh, it's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, it's really nice.
I had if you're, you know, going to be an intern or an assistant in the studio, don't do this. Crack the finish. They were using it instead of the 90 ankle jack. They use a straight one. They plugged it in. I'm pretty, you know, if someone wants to come here and they're into guitars, I let them play whatever they want to play.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, someone, you know, stepped on the cable with it in there and cracked it. Yeah. It's the yeah. Probably shouldn't do that anymore. I like, you know, it's like, I don't like when these instruments aren't played. So if someone wants to play them and they're excited about playing them, I want them to play them. So it's, you know, that middle ground of making sure it's not someone who's gonna, you know, not appreciate what they are playing.
I mean, yeah, I'd take this off your hands. It's absolutely beautiful.
You're welcome to borrow whatever you want.
Did you just hear that? Because it's gorgeous. So you have tons of drum heads. I mean, you've got it covered. some extra cymbals there.
So the hi-hats.
Oh yeah, got some old new beats.
These are cool. These are the original ones. They first kind of came out with the different weight bottom and top heads. You know, the new quote, why they call them new beats.
Yeah.
So these are the original vintage ones, and just so awesome. You know, again, one of those cymbals that's up on 70% of the sessions. You know, just they always work. They don't look like much, but they've got the sound.
Well, thanks ever so much.
You're very welcome.
Absolutely amazing. I mean, this is going to be a long video, but God bless it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I can get you to answer some questions. Anybody want to leave any comments or questions, please leave them below.
Awesome.
Matt, I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Lucas, to come over here. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Nice meeting you.